Class is starting. It's in session. Yeah. Peace, quiet. No. At my school, I'll just say, sit down and shut up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. I will not say that. Huh? It worked, though, didn't it? You know how many head slaps I'd get today if I actually meant that? Right. Siéntense, por favor. All right, so I'm starting back up on my on this book that I've been reading. Okay, we're going into chapter 3, which is the establishment of Israel. Okay, 1500 to 1000 BC. Guys, forget. But I forget what button do I push? The forward arrow. It's not working. Just click for me. All right, there we go. I know, right? Well, thanks about. Appreciate that. It's this book here called The Bible and World History, by putting Scripture into global context, right? By Stephen Leston. Okay. I even got one person last time I taught it to go buy the book, so that's good marketing, I guess. Gene Norman went out and bought it. But this is a really cool book. What we're doing is it feels really weak and loose. Yeah, please. I can't teach class without my slides, I know. Oh, here we go. So, you got to keep going. All right, so this book discusses 3 historical perspectives, okay? First one is sacred history, which is history in the Bible, right? It talks about the formation of Israel and the establishment of the Christian church, and it's very narrow, right, because it's very specific. Talks about all these events as they relate to the formation of Israel and the starting of the Christian church. The other perspective is secular history, which is everything outside of the Bible. Okay, these are not directly mentioned in the Bible because it's very general, a very broad view of history. Again, it's the entire world history. Okay. And the last one it's redemptive history, which is everything that's leading towards God's plan of Jesus and then his second coming. Okay? So these events directly connected and related to the specific plan of salvation that God already has for the world. So all 3 of these perspectives will mix at some point. Okay, they will all converge into one event, and they kind of go in and out. Okay, they all have an impact on each other, and we are able to see God's plan for all the ages through this. Okay. Should I just snap? I'll just snap. Yeah, he won't like that either. So in this class, what we were doing last summer was we are surveying major events and movements in world history. We're seeing that the world is not a series of random, repetitive cycles, because people think just history always repeats, right? We know that's not true. Go back. It doesn't repeat. It definitely rhymes, right? But it doesn't repeat itself. And it's not just random events either. Okay. Seeing that worldly, is it working now? Cool. Worldly events are not separate from those recorded in Scripture. We're recognizing the truth because we're using the Bible as our base here, and we will be better able to understand the Bible, the world, and the very heart of God, right? Because he controls everything. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Now it's feels more solid. So, was it missing batteries? Oh, okay. There you go. So, in chapter 1, this was from creation to Babel. I'm going to go over what we talked about a whole year ago because I doubt you guys remember. Right, Bill? Right, okay. I also want to add that you can always interject with a scripture that relates to it, although I have them all up there so every time I put in a scripture, I thought of you, Kay, because you're like, okay, where is that in the Bible? So I always thought about you, so I found as much as I could up there. I even did extra research so I could find the scriptures for you. You're welcome. But yeah, just interject, add something. If you want to add something to a certain topic, that's great. Do that, all right? So in chapter 1, again, this is the world and history becomes more clear when we look through the lens of Scripture. It just makes more sense. What we are able to understand from this chapter was why there's war, right? Well, mainly because sin entered the world. Okay, amongst, we have now adultery and lying and theft, all this stuff, right? We get the ideas of justice and self-preservation and where they come from. There's this guy named Sargon of Akkad a long time ago. I mean, this is Bronze Age stuff. I mean, like 2000 BC or something like that. It was a long time ago. Well, I guess in this case it's about 1500 BC. But yeah, he started to set up this system, actually a government system that inspires a lot of our governments today. We see the world is divided, obviously, through Babel, right? And how we have basic advancements like reading, writing, and the wheel, all these other things that we take for granted. Now, God let this stuff happen because it helps advance the world, but they were also using these things to reject him also. So we also have to keep that in mind. The world is now taking shape from the very beginning. The world was created for his glory. Let's go to Revelation 4:11 real quick. Because everything that we read in chapter 1 it's all for him, right? He created all of this so we could glorify him. And if someone could read that, just Revelation 4:11.
Worthy art thou, our Lord and our God, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou didst create all things, and because of thy will they existed and were created.
Okay, so he did it all to glorify him, created us so we could glorify him, right? Even through those, writing and reading, all that stuff, right? He allowed them to make those things so we could glorify him, but obviously that didn't happen fully. Also, we talked about rebelling against God leads to problems, a lot of problems. And what is the answer? Is to submit to Jesus, and that's in Psalms 2. Specifically, I want to read. So in Psalms 2, it talks about how nations and leaders, glorify themselves more than they do God. And because in verse 3 here it says, God says, "Let us break their chains and throw off their shackles," right? And then in verse 4, the one enthroned in heaven laughs and scoffs, right? But I'm going to go down to verse 12 of Psalms 2. Actually, we'll go to 10 here. It says, "Therefore, you kings, be wise. Be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. So that's obviously talking about Jesus when he comes, the Messiah. All right, in chapter 2, okay, this was the world starts to take shape. Okay, don't know why it's doing that, but okay. So we're seeing major developments. Why did it go there? Why did it do that? Hold on, let me go. Hey, Michael, push the back arrow on the slides in there. Why is it changing? There it goes. Okay. Oh, he's back there. Okay, thank you. I didn't know if I had it setting right here. I don't know what it was doing. All right, so the world's taking shape of all these different societies that are even up till now. During this time, this is during the time of Abraham and his descendants. Okay, this is so obviously, 2000 BC or something like that, right? A long, long time ago. We see that Egypt became a superpower. This is when all of the Israelites. This is especially during Joseph's time, right? When they all came to Egypt because there was a famine, and then there was too many of them, so the Pharaoh decided to, you know what? I'm going to show them that they can't overpower me. I'm going to make them my slaves, right? So then we get all that there, but Canaan developed agriculturally, right? We looked at that. Why does it keep going backwards? Thank you. Hammurabi, he came up with this code, right? These laws that was to bring justice to people, right? Known as Hammurabi's Code. They were very brutal, right? Like if you're, one of them was if you build a house and it falls and kills this man's son, then your son's going to be killed too, right? If you steal something from your father, your hand will be cut off, right? It sounds very, barbaric, but hey, it worked, I guess, right? I don't want to hurt someone because they're going to kill me. Then we see God's imprint on the world, through Moses and stuff like that. Mankind is seeking justice and order. This is when, so I'm going to just, I'll come back to that point. Humans are using the skills that God gave them to subdue the world. We also see wars, conflicts, and misery that sin brought. But despite this world and how divided it is, people are still looking for this meaning and purpose, right? Everyone doesn't follow God at this time, but people are coming up with their own religions, right? Following their own gods to find this purpose. I remember more specifically we talked about Egypt and their mummification process, why that was so important to them, right? Because it brought meaning and purpose to their lives. So the world really is taking shape. Okay? So in chapter 3, we're going to talk about, because every chapter has questions. They range from a lot to a little. This one has a little, right? Just 2. What is the significance of the discovery of tablets by an Egyptian woman in 1887? And then when God, 1 and 1, that's weird. Okay. When God sent the Israelites into Canaan to take over the land, he gave them very specific instructions. We're going to read these instructions in Deuteronomy 6. And then what do you learn from the nature of God and the fragility of humankind from these instructions? Okay? And I'll try to bring those questions up every time that we pass them. Okay? All right, so question for you. Have you ever found something that ended up having significant value? we're not talking about Jesus right now. We're talking about more like physical things. But yes, Jesus is the right answer. That's true. Something important. I don't know. That ended up being worth some money. Or maybe you thought you lost something and you cleaning out the attic, or well, we don't have basements here, and you're like, oh my goodness, this thing meant so much to me 50 years ago. Okay, thanks, Mary. Nothing? Yes, Michael. Oh yeah. Hey, there you go. Found it at Goodwill and you bought it for, you said $2? Look at that. Look at that. Mary, is Don worth more than that? Okay, good. You should, so, I shouldn't bring up this show, Family Guy, but I watch it at times. There was one point where, like, his wife, Lois, her dad's really rich. And he was, like, I guess and then Peter's not worth very much at all. Like, he's fat and drunkard and all that kind of stuff. But he wanted to marry Lois, and his dad was trying to pay him not to marry her. And he said, she may be worth that to you, but to me, she's worthless. He meant priceless, but, he said worthless. So go ahead, Kathy. Hey, there you go. All right. All right. Anybody else? Mike, nothing? Okay. Betty has? Really? What did he do with he just it's like Easter eggs. All right. One last game to play. All right, so in 1887, this amateur, average peasant Egyptian woman was doing her daily, her daily things, her daily routine. She's digging up for residue for ancient bricks to fertilize her crops, because they used to put in dung and stuff like that in their bricks. Okay, there you go. The mud bricks contain bits of fertilizer. And she found these tablets from a portion of the royal archives of ancient Egypt. Okay, she was unaware of what she actually found. She just found these tablets with some carvings and stuff on them, whatever, right? She's like, she probably already crushed some of them up. But she's set the rest aside, and because she thought, maybe there were something, right? So I'll save these rest here, and I'll try to get some money. Well, during this time, English and French archaeologists were excavating the country, looking for ancient cities and ruins to learn more about earlier generations. Remember, this is 1887. Bill, you just missed it. Okay, you weren't quite there yet. Yeah. Ron was there, though. Yeah, just the baby. Yeah. The the woman, sorry, guys, that's how I teach. I got to throw in jokes here and there, okay? Um, the woman tried selling these tablets to European scholars, but they accused her of forgery because that was pretty common back then. You know, they could probably just make a tablet and say, "Ooh, scribble something on it, and this means something." Like you just drew a smiley face. They didn't have those back then. So they just sent her away, shoo. The thought of coming up with something that important, right? Just like kind of, it was just not possible, right? How could a peasant woman just find something of value? Okay. Well, these tablets were taken to Luxor and sold to tourists, and many of them were destroyed on the way. Okay. But a British museum finally learned of their priceless value and purchased them, and led to more excavations of this area through 1891 through 1892. So you were a toddler then, right? Yeah. And more tablets ended up being discovered. So these were called the Amarna letters. Amarna letters, okay? So we're talking about, they were found in that box around that red box area, okay? Amarna letters. Keep this in mind, okay? So what is exciting about these tablets, and why are they of interest to us today? These tablets were ancient letters written to Egypt from various city-states in Canaan. And they addressed a multiplicity of issues. Anyone have an idea what that could be? Canaanite city-states writing letters to Egypt about issues, okay? Some were written in Babylonian cuneiform during the time of Moses and Joshua. They also provide the extra biblical evidence of the Hebrew tribes entering the land of Canaan. Some of the tablets were anxious letters written from Jerusalem warning the Pharaoh of an invasion by Habiru, who were approaching from the Transjordan. We have a better idea now of what's going on. Well, don't worry. I will connect it. Yes, there will be scriptures, Kay. So, our first question, right? What did this lady find? In 1887. Letters, right? Letters from who? From where? Why? I don't know. It's maybe. Yeah. Yes, these are extra biblical events that corroborate the Bible, right? That's what these are. And anyone find anything of that importance, just randomly? I found a fossil once in my yard. Actually, I found a couple fossils. I found a piece of a leg bone in my backyard. I still have it. It's not human, Deanne. Well, I hope it's not. This would be a big human if it was. I think it's the end of a femur from some kind of animal, hopefully, Deanne. Yes? Oh, yeah. And they said, look what we found. Right? Yeah. That's incredible. Look what we found. Not this little kid, randomly digging for stuff. Ouch. Yeah. That's an amazing find. And archaeologists actually use pottery as the best way to determine timelines. So you said 600 years ago? Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. What a great find. But no credit, right? No credit. Man. Well. Yeah. All right. So these letters give insight into the great international distress the Hebrews caused by taking over the Promised Land. God made his power known throughout the world, and the surrounding nations were afraid of what God was doing. This is the same, they would have known about the plagues by then, right? Yeah? I'm sure that word would travel fast of these different plagues. The water, turn into blood, and frogs and all this stuff, right? Pharaoh's son dying, okay? Which we'll get into that. That's really interesting too, okay? But yeah, this is the same God, right? That helped Moses part the sea. Okay? So they know of this Hebrew God. So why would these okay, I've already mentioned that. There you go. Why would these surrounding nations be afraid of the Hebrews entering the land of Canaan? Well, I just talked about it, right? This is the same God, the Hebrew God that was with Moses with the plagues, and the same God that parted the Red Sea, right? And he's been with them for 40 years as they're wandering the desert, right? So they know about this. This is not new to them. Okay, they know of this Hebrew God. So this talking about fearing God here. This can be two different ways of fearing God. One of them is to recognize how great God is and seek to show him honor and reverence to his name, right? The other one is quaking in the presence of God's power, but does not lead to praising or honoring him. Okay. So the Canaanites were obviously the second kind of fear, right? They don't worship God, right? They just fear him because they know what this God has done. Out of this fear, many Canaanites reached out to Egypt for help, requesting immediate military assistance. Okay? The letter from Megiddo mentions towns located in the Arad region in the south, and had already fallen to the invaders. Okay? We have a do you have an idea where we're going with this? Okay? These were those letters, Amana letters. These were the letters written by these Canaanite people about, hey, these Hebrews, these people are coming in here and destroying our cities. We need your help. Because during this time too, I think I have it up there. I don't know if I can go back. No, can't go back. I lost my train of thought. Anyone know where I was? Mike, remember where I was? Okay, here. Because Egypt controlled Canaan back then. All right? So they're reaching out to the guys in charge, right? All right. So let's go to Numbers 21, 1 through 3. Okay? Talking about these conquests of Canaan here. And someone can read that because I can't really read it from right here. Numbers 21, 1 through 3. Which means destruction, like destroyed, utterly destroyed. CK, biblical evidence. Okay, so Israelites destroyed cities in the south before moving along the Jordan River to the north. You can see those little arrows up there, right, of where they came from and where they were going. Okay, so Megiddo is that top blue circle. Okay. And then Arad is that circle that is lower. Okay? So the letter that we just read about or talked about came from Megiddo. And that's probably just, yeah, there you go. That's probably just, maybe, I don't know, 100 miles or so, right? Probably not that much. But, word travels fast back then, even though they didn't have telephones and stuff like that. So, all right. Let's go to the next slide. So no letters to the Egyptians were found from Jericho or Ai. Why not? They didn't have time to send letters out, right? So they were the first cities to be destroyed by the Hebrew armies, right? That's Joshua 6, 1 through 27, okay? Because they were destroyed first. They didn't have the time to ask for help. Plus, they got these big fortified walls. What are you afraid of, right? Okay? Again, this is the God of the plagues and part of the Red Sea, all this stuff, right? They know all this still. This is why the rest of Canaanite cities became afraid and requested military aid from Egypt. Okay, prior to the Israelites entering Canaan, the region was organized around major cities that established smaller principalities. So they weren't in big cities like Fort Worth, New York City, L.A. Right? They're kind of little ones around a bigger area, right? Since they were not organized centrally for defense, this helped the Israelites enter the land and take the cities pretty easily. There really wasn't much resistance. There was no unified national army. So again, they were just able to just conquer each of these individual places pretty easily. Okay, one at a time. So let's look at Joshua 6:30. Okay. This is pretty interesting here. This is something extra that I did for you guys. You're welcome. Joshua 6:30. Oops. Okay, that's not the right chapter. Wonder why. This is what happens when you Google, okay? Anyways. So I think the chapter is wrong. I think. Yeah. There's not 30 verses there, or maybe I just wrote 30 on accident. Let me try to find it. This is it's the chapter when they are destroying Jericho. No, there's a certain verse that I was looking at. Anyways, I'll just read it from up here. Wherever it is in Joshua, probably chapter 6. But it says, and it happened when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout that the wall fell down flat. Then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. So I brought this up because I was watching this video. This guy went to the actual site where they believe is Jericho. It's called Tel something. If you, especially over in Israel right now, if something's called Tel, Tell something, the Tel means, hold on, the Tel means that a city was there, it was destroyed, and they rebuilt over top of it. So if you get a cross section of this Tel, which looks like a big hill, okay? It just looks like a hill. But if you get a cross section of this Tel, you can see the different layers. And in this Tel here, I forget what Tel it was, you can see a blackened layer. Blackened layer. That's Jericho. And how do they know that this is a time of Jericho? From the pottery. They found pottery in that and on that level, the cross section, and they said this has to be Jericho, right? Now they also found rocks kind of tumbled down, right? So Jericho was built just like that, had different levels, right? I would say at least two, right? The outer wall is like for defense, right? And you can see up there. So when it says that the people went up into the city, when the walls came down, it made like a little stairs. They made stairs, kind of thing. So they actually went up into the city, and that's how it was. That's how they entered it. So pretty cool stuff. Pretty interesting. Oh, Michael, yes, go ahead. There you go. Yeah. And again, it just looks like a big hill, right? But the Tel means that there was a city there, and they kept building on top of it. All right, so we've already talked about that. All right, so let's look at life in Canaan here. So prior to the Israel conquests, okay, religion was an important part of everyday life in Canaan, okay, and centered around worship, different worship practices, okay. Tablets found in ancient Ugarit, which is now in Syria. That little, if you can tell, that's a little. This will work. This was working earlier. Oh, you can't see. It's the top red dot up there. They provide insight. Yeah, right there. Thank you. They provide insights. Can you zoom back out? Thank you. Into what life was like in Canaan before the Israelites' conquest. Okay. So they had this god called El, the god El. Okay, El was the head of the Canaanite pantheon of gods. Okay, he is seen as a creator and a fertility god. Okay, and then there's Atharat, or in the Bible she's called Asherah. Okay, Old Testament. That's El's wife. So she is seen as the mother of all the deities. She gave birth to 70 gods and goddesses. She is also a fertility goddess and the createss of all gods. Okay, so we have El is by himself there sitting down, and then there's a steely tablet there of his wife Asherah, Atharit. Okay. So each city had its own individual master, or so it's actually pronounced Baal. It's not Baal, it's Baal. So a while ago, we were reading a story. I think who was it? It was anyway, I forget. Anyways, he called it Baal, and then Loretta threw a big fit. It's not Baal, it's Baal. Well, Michael was right. I should tell Loretta that Michael was right. It's Baal. Anyways, Baal just means God. Okay, that's a god. So the Canaanite people believed that productivity of their land was predicated on their ability to keep the gods happy. Okay, so each local god was an offspring of El, whatever that god was. Okay, so the temple was located in the northern region and was not easily, not everyone could get there, right? So they all have their own little localized places of worship. Because if you give fidelity to your Baal, then you give fidelity to El, which then helps the land, right? So that's how their little system worked. So, all right. So let's go to our third question here. When God sent the Israelites into Canaan to take over the land, he gave them very specific instructions. Let's read these instructions in Deuteronomy 6:10-5. That is correct, by the way. Okay. And so let's go to Deuteronomy 6:10-15. Oh, wait. That clock is really fast. I got to stop. So we'll start here next time. All right? On this question right here. If you want to, you can read it for next week. Okay? That'd be great. I'll give you some homework. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.